Yes, I do want to talk about the very concerning news regarding Cobra Kai season, or let's say one review that I like, or that kind of makes me feel a little bit better about what's coming up, and one that doesn't. Basically, the idea here is that this is season 4 of Cobra Kai, and this is the first season that has been completely produced by Netflix, which you should always be weary of. Anything Netflix makes you should at least have a tinge of a fear as to how it's going to come out. You could give 1,000 examples of things that Netflix has made that don't come out. Or the better example would be like, can you name a good Netflix movie? And you'll go, and you'll just kind of think about it. But the adaptations in general, for every Witcher, there's a Cowboy Bebop. So it says, the battle for the soul of the valley continues, but this time stakes are higher than ever. While Cobra Kai has been on Netflix for some time, season 4 marks the first one produced by the streamer since its purchase from YouTube TV. Mm-hmm. Though the creative team remains the same, there are a couple of growing pains that are pretty evident in this new era, but all the same, it's still one hell of a ride. Now that Sam and Miguel have managed to convince their respective senseis to work together, Eagle Fang Karate and Miyagi-Do have one final hurdle to conquer on the way to the All Valley tournament, getting Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso to grow up despite agreeing that they'll have to work together and take down Cobra Kai. Mm-hmm. Now being run by the wicked John Kreese. Yes. Johnny and Daniel spend a whole lot of time trying to get past the whole mortal enemies thing. This will take up a good chunk of the season to varying degrees of success and varying degrees of viewer frustration. So, I was more worried about like things talking about like complete shifts in tone. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't want this thing to lose its shades of gray tone, which doesn't seem to be the problem here.
Yeah.
But there's a quote here. It says, "What's most compelling is that nothing really goes the way you'd expect it to." That worries me, because if there's one term that I never want to hear that I could do without ever hearing again in these settings, it's subverting expectations, which is really just hubris on the Census Studios. It's the quote. It's like, we give them what they want. We give them something that they didn't know they wanted, which is the highest level of hubris I can think of. Like, you, the audience, didn't know you wanted this until you got it. Yeah, that might be true once in a while, but 99 times out of 100 when you try that, it doesn't work.
Yeah. It's just a version of, I'm one of the most honest people you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
It's, don't tell me that, show me it.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell me you're going to subvert my expectations. Just show me,
and plus it to me, it always comes across in bad faith. It's people that don't have any connection in the context of this type of story, which is something that they're adapting from past material, right? Now, if you're subverting expectations in something new, maybe it's the ending is different than what the beginning of the movie might have hinted at. But when they're talking about subverting expectations, they're talking about taking beloved characters or ideas and turning them on their head just for the sake of doing it, not because it actually makes any sense within the world of the storytelling. Mm-hmm. In this story, for the most part, Johnny and Daniel both seem pretty consistent throughout the whole thing to their characters when they were younger. It's not like they got back and Daniel is a completely different person. The world as he experienced it from when he was a kid seems to have happened to him because of who he was in those movies, right? Mm-hmm. He never got out of the 80s. He never relived his heyday, and the world happened to him accordingly. Daniel, who was always kind of cocky and very, he kind of got everything he wanted, and they're neither good nor bad. So I was more worried that they were going to make it like, now so-and-so's just a good guy and so-and-so's just a bad guy because you didn't know you wanted this until we gave it to you. Mm-hmm. That worries me, and that doesn't seem to be what they're talking about here, but that quote still makes me worry that they're going that way, that certain story elements will be changed just for the sake of doing it. They're like, we've got control of this property now, let's put our stamp on it.
Well, that's kind of the anti-flavor that is synonymous with Netflix's brand.
Yep.
I mean, like if you have taste, then you're kind of worried that Netflix is going to Netflix it.
But then they also failed when they tried to do Cowboy Bebop, like an almost shot-for-shot adaptation of the. It's like you can't win. That's the hardest part about constantly trying to adapt new thing or adapt stuff that's old, is that you can't really win. Mm-hmm. For every one good adaptation, there's 1,000 that fail. The movie we seem to be most looking forward to this year is the Northmen, and that's not an adaptation of anything. It's just Norse mythology, or not even Norse mythology.
It's just
history.
a revenge story,
it's a Viking,
which I'm really excited for. Very tribalist right here.
Is that the new Eggers movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So it says, parts of the weirdness of season 4 comes from a kind of hokiness that wasn't expected. I would argue that there was a certain level of like hokiness in the whole thing. Like you have to kind of, you have to divert your, like, you have to literally like take your expectations for what a movie or a TV show is supposed to be out of it, and you have to not subvert your, you have to like suspend disbelief pretty far to think that a grown man in his 50s who owns a car dealership is suddenly going to be embroiled in ninja battles with rival karate dojos in the Valley of California. Like you have to, that's hokey. But it works within the context of the movie or of the show.
I've lived in the Valley. I don't think it's hokey at all. I think it's pretty realistic. I mean, if you told me that happened in the Valley, I'd be like, oh, which papers reported that story?
Perfect
especially given Daniel's background. You know, I mean, it's not like he just decided at the last minute on a whim.
Yeah.
Like it adds up in some, I would argue, a plausible way, even in reality.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the storytelling ability that they've done to world build in a way that makes it feel like you forget that you're watching grown men teaching teenagers how to do karate in a way that's like supposed to be told as if it's some blood feud. Like you have to suspend a certain amount of disbelief there, but that means they've done their job.
Sure,
if they're able to do that. So
I don't know. I'm just not excited for this TV show, but
I'm gonna make her watch it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not excited.
I'm gonna turn your opinion around.
Well, if you want to ruin a good TV show, how come nobody's complaining that Daniel is culturally appropriating this Japanese culture?
Those articles have been written. We're not going to talk about that here because those. I don't want to give such stupidity the time of day.
I know. I just want to ruin your day.
It's a movie. It's am I mansplaining to you about? Yeah. Okay. Still, the hokiness is met with a kind of more emotionally challenging season. Tori, played by Peyton List's story, is most certainly the MVP, so that could be good. You like her more
I like her because, funny story about her, my friend King, whose birthday is on Christmas Day, his password, he changed it, don't worry, but his password was her birthday.
Okay.
And his wall screen and lock screen was her.
He didn't change his password yet. He better change it now.
Change it now.
No, he changed it. I asked him.
Okay.
I was like, did you change it? Because I think I remember your password. And he's like, don't worry, I changed it. But legit, this is what he said to me in high school. He's like, she's my wife. I'm going to marry her one day. But he's over her.
Okay, well, that's why he changed his password.
Yeah.
It says, and then the character of Hawk, played by Jacob Bertrand, coming in a close second as far as stories that seem to be MVP for the year.
He has a punchable face.
He does. It's the Mohawk. Second to each of them, find their dynamics challenged in completely different ways, continuing Cobra Kai's strong success with its large ensemble cast, which is hard to do. One of the things I've noticed in Hollywood is they're getting away from individual stories and they want to push for ensemble casts. I have my own theories as to why that is, because I think they can check box after box after box of what they need to do to get bonus points from certain crowds that will approve of such things. And it's, then there's less, first of all, it's probably got a lot to do with money. Like when one person's the star of it, he can ask for more money as the show grows. And ensembles can do that, but not to the realm of like what one good, strong lead can do.
Yeah.
So it says, perhaps the most complex ride is that of Terry Silver, though Thomas Ian Griffith's return to the franchise just hits different. Wow, that is a very Gen Z way to phrase that. Kreese's evil is an easier kind. The Cobra Kai leader is manipulative, to be sure, and he knows how to play the game better than anyone else out there, except for maybe one, Terrence Silver. No one was more successful at breaking Daniel LaRusso than Silver in his mind games. The thing is that Terry, we meet, is well adjusted and has a happy life that he's living as a retired entrepreneur with a hot vegan girlfriend. So they have to find a way to plausibly make this retired entrepreneur who's rich be like, I gotta come out of retirement and start a karate dojo to take down my old nemesis and his old nemesis who are now working together. That's ridiculous. Like, even they said, like, when they gave him the script for this, he read it, he's like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever read. Let's do it.
Wow.
Like, that's awesome.
Why am I watching this again?
Because it's awesome.
Oh.
It says, so as far as team-ups go, the most exciting pairing by far comes from a completely unexpected source. Amanda LaRusso is mad as hell that this karate nonsense resulted in a bunch of hooligans breaking into her home and threatening her kids' lives. But we see a surprising amount of empathy for her once she learns the story of one of the offending Cobra Kai. The growth we see from her and this character is perhaps what leaves the most excited for season 5. Yeah, she felt very like in the first guy, but for like very understandable reasons. Like, if you're like a middle-aged woman and you've got a husband who owns and you own a successful car dealership together, and you see this stuff happening, you would absolutely be like, what the hell are you doing?
Of course.
So it's like, maybe as realistic as that is, it feels like a wet blanket when you're trying to suspend your disbelief. Mm-hmm. So hopefully if she gets a more complex role, maybe that adds to the show. But then the other review, this is from AV Club, and it just basically says Cobra Kai's new season is another winning combo of silly and earnest, which is exactly what it is. It's completely ridiculous in concept, but they never wink at the camera. They're always like, we have to have a karate battle and we have to live by these principles, and they're not looking at the camera and saying, wink, wink, this is silly. They own it, and so they own the silliness, which keeps you engrossed in what you're watching. Right? So the joy of Cobra Kai has always been its mix of tones. Not many shows can pull off an earnest worldview combined with crass humor, an extremely silly premise, and an insightful social commentary. So there's also the fact that all these characters are shades of gray. Like, I like Zabka as Johnny more than I like Daniel. Like, even though he's like in the original, he would have been the bad guy. I maybe don't identify with him more, but Daniel to me has a very punchable face. You think that Hawk does. I'm like, God, this guy. Like, when you see the dude who owns a car dealership and feels like he's always so like sanctimonious, like, so the willingness to paint all characters in shades of gray is something that they had to commit to early on and keep going. So the fact that they haven't lost that is important. So
I don't know.
We'll see.
I'm just not
when does it
excited.
debut?
On the 31st of December.
Oh, wow.
So it's just a couple days away. But basically, I wanted to point out the fact that there was definitely like things in that IGN review where I'm like, they first of all, they were quick to point out that YouTube got involved. That makes me worry. We'll see.
But IGN gave them 7 out of 10 for their rankings.
Yep, but I would say, like, you have to read between what the ranking is and look at what they say, because like you'll watch a review, like if you look at the reviews for like Shang-Chi, which got low rankings, but what they say is like glowing praise because they're too afraid to piss off Disney. So it's like, they're like, we'll give it a 6 out of 10, but then it's almost all like negative, or like it's like, this part was good. So you have to pay just as much attention to like what they say as you do to like what the actual number when they rank things. I'm not a fan of like giving things numbered rankings or anything like that. I'd rather just talk about what you felt about it, and then you make your assumption, or you make your decision based on how you felt the conversation was between the people discussing it. So
that's the way to go.
Yep. So I am the only one that is excited to see this show. That is fine. I'm okay
because
with
you like cheese with like extra stank.
I don't. You see, I only watched the first season. I don't know if it like becomes more silly from there. But I didn't think that the first season was silly. I didn't think it was.
It's silly if you take like 100-yard view and look at what they're doing. It's absolutely silly. But if you're engrossed in the show, it's not right. It just feels like a grown men. Okay, maybe that's the best part. The grown men aspect of it feels silly. The kids aspect of it feels more realistic to me. Kids feuding, kids acting like kids. But the fact that grown men are doing it maybe is more silly to me.
Grown men are still kids. That's why I didn't see any silliness. Like, I was just like, no, this is so plausible. I mean, especially given the roots that all of this has in the actual movies. Like, I was just like, I'd buy every second of this. And then I lost it in the first episode. It was a conversation between one of the old guys that they brought back, and they're sitting at a diner in the first episode 1, season 2. That's when it became ridiculous for me. That was my jump the shark moment for the show.
What was was it? What was it?
One of the old guy that like came back. He was this, I can't remember.
Kreese.
Kreese.
Yeah.
He came back in episode 1, season 2.
When
He's
they're in
sitting at the diner.
Yeah.
I was just like, this became awful.
Yeah.
This is when that show became awful, and I never went back, even though it may have redeemed itself in the following 2 seasons.
It never bothered. Like Kreese never bothered me. Like in fact, they give a lot more like background to Kreese and shades of gray that make you understand, even though he is technically what I would consider the bad guy. Like there's explanation given for it, like with what he endured after. Like they talk about him being like, I went back and trained special forces, and that didn't happen. He's like.
Oh, yeah. No kidding. This is one of those things I should have stuck with.
An old guy trying to hold on to his glory days.
Like Madonna.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.